case you missed it, the Sky's Chennedy Carter shoulder-checked Caitlin Clark from behind, knocked her down before the basketball was inbounded. A common foul was called, but the WNBA on Sunday upgraded it to a flagrant 1. Sky coach Teresa Witherspoon called the play inappropriate and said Carter and the team will learn from the incident. Carter spoke to the media about it yesterday.
In the head the play before, and it was just like one of those things that was in the heat of the moment. You know, I don't know Caitlin. I don't know her from anywhere. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, this is hoops. It's competitive, and this is basketball. And you're playing against somebody like me. I classify myself as a dog. So if you're gonna throw a punch, then I'm gonna compete with you. I'm gonna play at the level that you're given. So that's just the player that I am.
Everybody in the league should be ready for it, not just the rookies. I mean, coming into a league that is super competitive with amazing talent here, like. I wasn't coming in here expecting it to be easy because of the name I have. I'm playing for the name in front of me. I'm playing with the letters across my chest. So understanding that and understanding what that comes with, we all we got, we all we need.
All right. Chiney, talk to me. What's your reaction from what you just heard from Carter and Reese?
Okay, so I'm going to start big picture. I played in the WNBA for 10 years, and when you are a #1 pick, which I was 10 years ago, I know I'm starting to feel old, you do have a target on your back. You came into the league as the top dog in college, and now professional players whom you're going up against want to show you why they are on top. I mean, my big sister included, she dropped 24 on my head the first time we played against each other. This path is not for the weak, and I think you heard Angel Reese attest to that, but it is the most rewarded path. Now, on this path, there will be some moments, and I think a perfect example is from whom you just saw, Chennedy Carter, but I think also to learn from this situation, let's go back to Candace Parker. I played with her, and I played against her, and she came in as a transformational player who dominated her rookie year, the only player to both be Rookie of the Year and MVP, and if you see in this moment right here, Plannette Pearson came at her and provoked a whole altercation. And I'm sorry, I played against Plannette as well. She had a distinct reputation on the court playing for Bill Laimbeer's Detroit Shock. And he brought that same Pistons energy to the WNBA. Now fast forward to where we are today and what we just witnessed happen between Chennedy Carter and Caitlin Clark. I want to be absolutely clear. No one condones what Chennedy Carter did to Caitlin Clark on that one play. But you have to call a spade a spade. It was a cheap shot. But if we're speaking on what the entire sequence of events were that Chennedy alluded to, what we love about Caitlin is the same thing that we love about Diana Taurasi, the all-time leading scorer in the WNBA. They talk trash, and they have the game to back it up. Caitlin was just named Rookie of the Month, averaging 17 points per game and 6 assists. She is holding her own, and guess what? She talks about it. I've heard from multiple players some of the things that have been said on the court because I still am, in some ways, a part of the league. And when you initiate that type of talk, it opens the door for some things you cannot expect. Now, was Kennedy's response to this completely wrong? Yes. When you initiate that type of talk, these things happen. Is Kennedy someone that probably has one of the shortest fuses in the WNBA? Yes. Why do I know that? I played with her. Was that on the scouting report for Caitlin to know? Probably not.
Shannon?
Yeah, I agree with a lot what Shanae said. I think the thing is, I believe, Miss Carter, you can play hard without playing cheap. Now, if you want to say, well, she threw a elbow or a punch at my head, if you wanted to hip check her and you're trying to block her out for a rebound, I don't think we're having the discussion. Shanae, Monica, I don't think we're having that discussion. But because she was standing there and you go up and you do that, now all eyes are on you. Plus the fact, if people look at your resume, is who you are. You're a top 5 pick, and within inside of a year, you're kicked off a team. You go to another team, and within that situation, all that happens. Yeah, of course. It's the same thing. Stephen A. Put Stephen A. up on the screen for a second. Stephen A., you remember when Tiger Woods came into the PGA? How they hated on him because he was getting all the shine? But now they applaud him for all the money and revenue that these tournaments pay out now. So I agree. Ms. Carter, I believe you can play hard. You're supposed to compete. But I believe you can do it without being cheap. And that what you did was a cheap shot.
I agree with both Janae and Shannon. And we all have said this is not a basketball play. And I think we heard from head coach Teresa Witherspoon, who is a legend in the WNBA,
yes,
right? And she acknowledged that's not going to be what Sky basketball is all about. And so this was a bad moment for Chennedy Carter. It has been magnified. It has been a point of discussion. I still feel that it's a non-story in my mind, but I understand that we have to discuss it because of what we do for a living. But if this happens on the ebbs and flows of a regular basketball game to somebody else, it's not a story, y'all. And so I just think this is not a good look. Sometimes when you compete at a high level, it is an emotional experience. You make a decision that you ultimately regret, and that's what this is in the Sky. And I'm sure the Fever probably, too, are both going to move on.
Stephen A.?
You know, y'all, Monica, you're absolutely right. In the grand scheme of things, it's not a big story. But it's a big story because it involved Caitlin Clark. And we have to accept that. And it's almost like there's this resistance to acknowledging Caitlin Clark and the impact that she has had and is having. Chennedy Carter did what she did. It wasn't a basketball play. We see non-basketball plays being made on the basketball court by males and females all the time. You know, it's not a big deal. This is not a reason to excoriate Chennedy Carter or Angel Reese, who got up and clapped immediately after she did it and said, come on, this ain't a reason to excoriate them or anything like that. But it is a reason to pause for a second and to remind them what's going on and what's transpiring before our very eyes. So what would that be? The WNBA right now is at a tipping point. You have a young lady in Caitlin Clark that generated 18 million viewers for the national title game against South Carolina. 14 million, if I remember correctly. If I'm wrong about that, Shanae and Eminem, please let me know. I don't think I am. I think it was 14 million for the semifinals, 18 million for the national championship game, 12 million for the Elite Eight game. These are unprecedented ratings. And then I pointed out yesterday about the WNBA draft, 2.446 million. That was a record, and how the doubleheader to open the season was the best ratings they had in 2 decades, and all of this other stuff. Why does that matter? So I go back to my numbers, y'all. You know, last year the Bloomberg News reported Bloomberg News report found that the WNBA was projected to make between 180 to 200 million in revenue. Juxtapose that to the NBA. They're at 10.6 billion in revenue last year. So there's a climbing that's taking place with the WNBA. And when you look at advertisers and sponsors, when you look at the specter of a new television deal scheduled to come down the pike, and the windfall that could create for WNBA players, guess what you do under those circumstances? You protect the golden goose. Why do you think Matt Barnes went on social media and was, from All the Smoke, and he went on social media and he was talking about, where the hell are your teammates? You got to protect us. It's not to say the competition doesn't compete against Caitlin Clark hard. Doesn't mean they don't go after her. Doesn't mean they don't try to get the best of her and what have you. But you do it with an appreciation for what she's bringing, because you recognize the rising tide lifts all boats. And if that golden goose is a wave that we can ride to elevate ourselves to a place that we've been working diligently for years to achieve, you don't get in the way of that. Eminem, you and I talked yesterday. Shanae, you and I have talked about this on numerous occasions in terms of the work that y'all have put in to elevate the level of recognition your sport, women's sports altogether, especially women's basketball, so richly deserves and has been underappreciated for years. Well, if you see somebody comes along and all of a sudden, wait a minute here, I mean, we can ride this wave right here and this could really get us to a place we've been starving to get to, you don't get in the way of that.
Excuse me, Stephen A., I have one question.
You do what it takes to
clarify. How are they getting in the way? How are the WNBA players getting in the way of Caitlin Clark? I just want to be clear, make sure we understand.
I'm not saying they're getting in the way. I'm saying you guard yourself from getting in the way of the specter of stuff that's coming down the pike. If I see a whole bunch of stuff coming down, like It could be something going on in television and, somebody's got contract negotiations going on or we got a television deal that's coming down the pike. You're paying attention to every little thing that you do to make sure you don't get in the way of what's coming. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying they've done anything. I'm saying you have to look. If a golden goose lands in front of your face and you recognize them for being that, and there's an incredible benefit that comes down the pike while competing and trying to get the best of her and get your own shine and elevate your own cachet. It could be endorsement deals. It could be anything. The point is, you exploit it and capitalize off of it rather than get in the way of it. The reason why everybody's talking about this story is because it involved Caitlin Clark.
True.
Period.
Absolutely.
If Chennedy Carter had gotten into it with some player from the Mystics or some other player from the Liberty or somebody else, we would not have been talking about it. We're talking about it because it's Caitlin Clark. So if we know that, then we're recognizing the cachet that Caitlin Clark brings. And all I'm saying is ride that wave. Ride it.
If you also know each and every player of the WNBA, the idea that women have to be mindful of how they compete, and also the idea that the WNBA is a monolith is a kind of a dangerous thought, because the WNBA is a melting pot of women who compete differently. And I do think when you have an incident that happens with Caitlin Clark, that becomes magnified. I played with Chennedy Carter for the Los Angeles Sparks, and the way she competed against Caitlin is the way that she has competed against everyone she has gone up against. And at times it has worked to her detriment. We are so caught up dissecting the growth of the women's game that we are missing out on the goodies. I keep telling people, why can't all growth, all ways that women compete, be good for the game? Yes, there was an out of bounds play. And I say that that is not indicative of how everyone plays in the W. But unfortunately, when we talk about Caitlin Clark, who rightfully has brought the lion's share of what we are seeing right now, that notion that Caitlin is constantly acknowledged, it's true. She has brought so much good and growth, and we want to protect that, but not at the expense of people competing. And I think the people that compete sometimes get erased because of moments like this. The sentiments of growth that people talk about, and I'll just finish wrapping really quick right here. The sentiments of growth in acknowledging Caitlin's impact are not amplified by the media. It's the outliers, the controversial 1% that is amplified over and over again. And I think that's where we have to do better. And that's why Monica and I and so many others exist to sort of help usher in that reality. A lot of the new fans who are excited about the game and that we are welcoming to the game only want to hear the praise of one player because that is the only thing that brought them here. And that's perfectly fine, but it should not come at the complete erasure of how everyone in the league competes, even in its worst moments. And unfortunately, the moment happened that a lot of people attract this entire narrative to a league, and I hope they choose not to make that continually happen in the moving forward.